conscious effort to start on time tonight, even though I had a few last minute details because tonight's show is going to be a little bit different. I mentioned the normalization. I had a class today. For some of the people, they may not know I'm in university. I'm studying history. I plan on writing a true history of the United States homeschool history, including the genocides and all the lies that they told us about. Hey, we're the light on the hill, and a lot of it came to. Well, you'll be able to keep up. Because it's Elijah Lucas Pinkney, Republican Motherhood. She gave typical. She married a much older man, and typical. He died and left her a fortune. She became something famous. Well, we'll see. Philadelphia. What was the government? Why did they wait till 1887? Why did John Hancock sign his name so big? They were deists. That's going to be my contention. Welcome everybody to Mud Flood was Armageddon. The Mud Flood was Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they are willing to debate you in a fair and honest way, which they probably won't. They'll probably co-opt some of your ideas and go off on a tangent, and everybody might be intrigued because you'll make so much sense when you tell them the golden age is past. So that's the girl we're going to look up. Natural law, we're going to look up. Do I have anything to show you? Don't tell me I closed my picture. I should close them all. Man, I might as well have been late. And there were some good thumbnails I did in the last week. I'm just closing them out right now. Un momento. You hold on. Desktop. Might be showing some. Not even sure if I'm going to show some, but I'm not giving medical advice, financial advice, or am I trying to make money off of somebody that has a copyright on a material, even if it's somebody like on YouTube talking about flat Earth, and they go like, I own it." Whatever. Man, I didn't show it. There it is. So I described it, and there it is. This is not a money-making scheme, you guys. Come on, knock it off. We're not trying to get rich here. Do I have any pictures to show you? Did I download any screenshots? Well, I want to get a bigger shot of this one here because we're gonna, and if JP is going to be watching tonight and you want to pop on, I want to go over your question too, because it's only fair, that if I'm not saying "Thus saith the Lord," which is very, 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 very rare when the percentages of days I've been on YouTube. But there are a lot of things I think and I say, because the Stones cried out and the golden age passed is because, of this ministry, whether you believe it or not, and other things. I think people should be like, yeah, we can look at it. And he had a question about my evolution, for lack of a better word, of like, who are the sons of God in Genesis 6? Because, hey, it's tricky. Not like that rap song. It's tricky. Sometimes it's hard to rock that rhyme. It's tricky. Okay. So I cut this out of 2 Timothy 2. I hopefully have this pulled up. But this seemed important to me when I heard it today, so I rushed over and took a screenshot. I was listening to the Bible, looked it up and took a screenshot. The takeaway on 2 Timothy 2:19 is highlighted. The Lord knows those who are his. And everyone who calls on the name of the Lord must turn away from iniquity. A large house, your temple, contains not only vessels of gold and silver, but also of wood and clay, hay and stubble. Some indeed are for honorable, but other are for common. So we've got to cleanse himself of what is unfit. You want to be a vessel of honor. There are certain ways to do it. And wow. Is there anything about you that reminds you of your youthful passions? Hmm. So this is the body part. There's your thumbnail, RJ, and was, Tyson Mud Fossil. And he's one that, loves the work, loves the golden age past and stuff, and is not into the trees. I appreciate him, but he's really into, oh, there's dragons in the mountains all over. Those are titans. They don't have to be dragons. They can look like a dragon, but it's not. It's not. So the buzz around town in 2013 was over a movie called Gravity. And we're going to be bringing up, I got a lecture today, another lesson, every history lesson, every culture class in university. I guess one of the reasons the Lord wanted me to come to university is I could see firsthand is that these teachers, good people, salt of the earth, are programmed to millstone your children when they get to college because it's always religious. It's always about, and today was overt. It needs to be deism. That's what works. But we're going to look a little bit at the movie Gravity. It's been the buzz around town for weeks ever since the movie buffs began circulating the clip of Gravity showing Sandra Bullock telling George Clooney that her hometown is Lake Zurich, Illinois. Well, that clip is not on YouTube right now. I looked for it and looked for it because I wanted you to show it because I raised a family in Lake Zurich, Illinois. I lived in that town for darn near 30 years. Wow, that seems like, doesn't that seem like a long time? Some of you guys that are like 35 and you go like, that seems almost impossible. No, it's not. It's really not. She lived in Lake Zurich, and we'll find out why. Well, one of the reasons, a reason Lake Zurich was chosen is because the village is the Silicon Valley of medical engineering. And gee whiz, if I didn't help my wife get in on the ground floor of that in 2012 with freaking learning that informatics because of Obama was going to write a language for if you like your doctor, you could keep him in. Oops, I didn't want to edit that. If you like your doctor, you can keep him, and everything was going to be better, but it didn't turn out better. And they wanted to have nurses, but they had to have a bachelor's degree. You couldn't just go to a nursing school. You had to go to a university, get a bachelor's degree. Then you could be qualified to write the code for Obama. And now she makes like $250,000 a year or something. But oh, wow, they were throwing money at us. It was crazy. Hola, Marcella, and welcome, Rebecca Ringer. How are you doing? There'll be some more people popping in. Don't worry, but this is for you, patriot that you are, Rebecca. I think you are. I may be wrong, but I think that a lot of people have got caught up in the patriotism, and don't be hard on me if I'm a little bit like super anti-patriot tonight because I just want it to be. I think we got set up. The only thing I wrote in my notes, maybe maybe you can read it. Yeah, see how it's weird there. This has been planned to be hard to understand. The two names above it, Roger Williams and Ann Hutchinson, founders, big time players in the founding of Rhode Island. That was last week's classes. This week I came in, sat down, and wrote, this has been planned to be hard to understand. The next thing I was keeping a note on this page and note on this page that was his current PowerPoint. Wow. Come on, Paco. Well, look at me get stubborn and try to dig in. Anyway, 1722, 1793, Eliza Lucis Pinckney. We'll learn about her together in the Republican Motherhood, the colonial label practices. I learned today again that white people were indentured servants when they came over. They they give the Africans were for slavery, the slave culture. They wanted to change it, but they just kept voting to keep it. The first slaves were in 1619, and that was in Jamestown, and that's what did that East English Tea Company, and they had that triangle of trade routes from the 1600s, from what I call the end of the Golden Age, up until 1711. It was by that time the wheat and the tares were still being ruled with a rod of iron, but it was pretty, you could tell what Christians were trying and what Christians were gunning up, saying, oh, it's just self defense, and which ones were, I don't know how much of it's true, but a lot of it probably is. Christians burning each other alive for not believing in certain doctrines. So we'll get at that. Let's quit looking at. So this is
judge what people believe or say based upon what people that they are associated with have said. And I'm not even associated with any. I don't even know any of these people that were interviewed. I know none of them. So I just happen to have been interviewed by someone who also interviewed these other people for some project. I have no connection to these people. I have no responsibility for what those individuals said, any more than if I speak at a conference with a number of other speakers, somehow I am responsible for what other speakers say. Or if I contribute a book article for some kind of volume, which I have done multiple occasions, I am not somehow responsible for the doctrine that is taught by or whatever is argued by the people who write other essays in that volume. That's just not how this kind of thing works. And so I don't have any regrets about participating in this project, just because it was just a chance for me to talk about some things that I've written on and things that I care about, and that's fine. So that doesn't mean that I agree with what all of the other individuals said. It seemed that, yes, some of the language that they used was inflammatory. I have never accused Heiser of being a polytheist. However, I can see why someone would say that. There is my concern is not so much in terms of what Heiser specifically affirms or denies. It's really kind of implications of certain elements of his theology, or the dismissal of so many classical categories that are used to protect the creator-creature distinction. They're just not there in Heiser, because Heiser is very much a biblicist in the way that he approaches theology. My disagreements with Heiser are largely methodological, dealing with the question of what is the authority of creeds and confessions. How is it that we should look at the text of the New and the Old Testament in light of the history of the church? What is the proper role of using, historical critical conclusions about the text of the Old or New Testament? Those are really the kinds of issues that I have disagreements with Heiser on.
Yeah, so you were probably wondering, and boy, I hope I was sharing that. Good. Because that's another thing that we deal with here on this channel is, we were showing the rocks, RJ and I and Doug, and we were saying, they're titans. At the same time, Dr. Heiser was getting big money from, the Blue Book Bible Blue Project, and saying like it was with Rob Skiba. There were Nephilim, there were giants, except theirs weren't frozen in judgment. Theirs were breeding with people and causing irreparable damages. Why did they stop doing it? And I forget the Lutheran pastor's name, who is a conservative Lutheran. And I know some of you people right now are just going like, how can Lutherans be saved? They baptize babies. Oh my goodness, stop it. And It's Enoch, and it's the pseudepigraphical books. Dr. Heiser did something that no other scholar had ever done. And yeah, he did show how do things get released? I don't know. The council in heaven and different things like that. His research made me change my mind, and I think that people should be willing to go like, wow, he tore up the exegesis and the hermeneutics on Elohim and council. Uh, the Most High is more clear and more revered now. Christ's suffering, the fact that, that was uncalled for. God dying in our place. Nothing that you can rationally explain is from an all powerful God saying, yeah, I'm going to do it this way. That's just amazing stuff. So a little more, maybe. Now that you know what he's talking about, well, let's jump ahead here and just see.
Of what's going on in the German Academy at that time. He's influenced by certain particular Lutheran thinkers. Kosegarten is the most significant one, who's pretty unknown. None of his stuff is translated into English. But if I participated in that project, what if there's somebody, they interviewed all sorts of people. I'm sure there are people that believe.
Dr. Cooper, you need some thicker skin, man. People are going to get pushed back on you sometimes. And you don't know the people involved in the Heiser thing. And if you knock him, it destroys everything that they've hoped for, and that.
Seconds I won't be able to track you. Need to detach. I can't see you anymore. Do it now. Houston, I've lost visual, Dr. Stone.
Wow, it's scary, huh? Floating. Gravity. That's a new word, isn't it? Gravity of the situation. Look at that. Got a little curve coming up over there. This was a very famous movie, man. She was in space and it blew up. Watch this one scene of her flipping on this. Hey, there's Florida. Looks kind of close.
Explorer, do you copy?
Explorer, permission to retrieve Dr. Stone.
Your go, Squawk.
Uh-oh, it's about to go bad, everybody.
Copy.
PG-13,
We lost
PG-13.
Houston. We lost Houston.
Look, we need to get the hell out of here. Need some help there, man? No, don't wait for us.
We're stuck.
Man down!
Houston.
Man down! Explorer's been hit.
See, this is not a science fiction movie, according to the director. It's a story about a woman in space. It's real. I looked it up. Why does the director explain why Lake Zurich is featured in a whole monologue about? And I wish they showed that clip because they just talked about, boy, I was raised in a bubble. It was the perfect little town. It was so cool, man. I think I looked it up twice because I wanted to see that scene. And when I looked up Sandra Bullock, George Clooney, scene, should I put in Gravity? Maybe because I didn't put in the movie Gravity, that won't show it, I'll bet. How do you spell gravity? With a G? Okay, so that's where she falls apart. I've looked at all these videos. They don't show it. It's a speech. She's sitting next to him in the capsule. Maybe that's it. You had to get super specific, maybe. Remember the whole thing here. You gonna talk about Lake Zurich, Sandra? I don't like your hair in this movie. guys want a spoiler alert on this? Who's this guy?
Trust me, it's a hell of a story.
You guys want a spoiler alert? If you don't, plug your ears for about 5 seconds. This character may or may not be alive. She may be imagining this person as a way of coping for this intense situation in the movie Gravity. And he calms her down, gets her to relax. Don't do it. He's the
You never told me where.
Oh, well.
Where it was. So.
like a guy in a spacesuit's going to come in there with a bottle of whiskey.
Tyrannotomy.
Just won 7 Oscars.
Dystrophy. Huh? No? Landing is launching. It's the same thing. Didn't you learn about that in training? I get it. It's nice up here. You just close your eyes and tune out everybody. And what's the point of going on? What's the point of living? Your kid died. Doesn't get any rougher than that. If you decide to go, then you gotta just get on with it. I'm telling you, it's a hell of a story.
So I guess the idea of seeing the clip where they talk about how wonderful Lake Zurich is not in your future. Sandra Bullock played Dr. Ryan Stone. That's kind of a man's name. A medical engineer and mission specialist from Lake Zurich, Illinois. According to the director of the movie, Dr. Stone is a character who lives in her own bubble. She feels trapped in her spacesuit. George Clooney, he's Ed Harris, Mission Control. This was a big movie, man. What is Lake Zurich? What do they say about it? Population isn't growing that much in the last 20 years, is it? I moved there 92. I don't know. That's why you got those records. That's why somebody needs to do a Freedom of Information Act on me. When are you guys out there that don't like me going to spend some money? Pop for one of those Freedom of Information Acts. Let's find out about me. Do it on my dad, too. I don't want to have to do it. I mean, it's a couple $100. The area first settled in 1830. George Elah, Route 12, Route 22. These were the original Indian roads, and they are indispensable even to this day. Alpine Fest from Lake Zurich. They used to have a band that did they were a Beatles cover band called American English. And they looked just like the Beatles and sounded just like them. Want to see just a clip, maybe? Because I got that whole disclaimer out there. I wonder where this going to take place at. Oh, okay, near Lake Zurich. They say they start off like the Beatles in their early days.
It's also called This Boy.
This was one of. Does it look like the Beatles? And then they do a break, and then it's, hey, check them out. Then they get into their solo career, and it's, at the time, it's fun. It's super fun, man. So Lake Zurich, what else is interesting here? Eminent domain. Yeah, I lived there in 2004, and I was a big part of this. They wanted to build a promenade and a TIF tax influenced zone or something, and they just started eminent domaining everything. They bought a football championship. They paid $500,000 for a brand new football field. A few years later, one year they got second in state. Next year they won. It was like that Friday Night Lights movie, man. And my son was one of the snare drummers. You have to be an excellent percussionist and know how to play piano to they were, it was just like, it was a dream. It was a dream. Matt Blanchard played for the Bears. He was I think he was the runner up. He got the second place for for the Bears, the high school. What did he do in high school? Attended Lake, and he was teammates with the famous Dallas Cowboy All Pro first round draft pick. Yeah, we had a football powerhouse, man. We hardly ever lost. Yeah, way to go, Matt. Who else was famous in Lake Zurich? Well, not too many famous people, huh? Al Salvi, he was a Roman Catholic, but people still voted for him because he was so pro-life. Now, this high school, their arts department, they had to file a lawsuit to see how much it actually cost. And they never came up with a number. They would not say how much, that's Lincolnshire. Where's the Lake Zurich? Yeah, everybody in this town is rich. I mean, when you talk about people that get the 36s on their tests, doesn't it going to show the high school? Okay, European settlers, we got all that. ELA, public schools. Now I clicked on that and it showed Stevenson. Okay, districts include Lake Zurich. This is the richest part of Illinois. And I still had to shop at Goodwill to afford to live there. Man, that's crazy. But anyway, whatever. American businesses.
At the height of its power. With the help of finance from large corporations inside and outside of Germany, Adolf Hitler has conquered almost half of...
Right, inside and outside. It's the United States. The United States is the same as Germany. Germany learned eugenics from us. And no matter what people like Static in the Attic are saying, they weren't the good guys. There are no good guys. The good guys, the only good guys in our situation, in our timeline, are called the camp of saints. We are right now in a period where Satan has been loosed. 9/11, September 11, was a cognitive dissonance that reset the banking world order, and that fulfills the prophecy of Daniel 12, where it says, how long? How long? Hey, it's sealed. How long? It's sealed. But this, from the time that the daily sacrifices end, because of the abomination of desolation, check Matthew 24, our Lord Messiah, our God King, says, when's this going to happen? And he tells them, well, have you read Daniel? When the abomination of desolation happens, that's when this is going to happen. And we all know what happened. We don't have to believe Josephus because he writes a false history compared to what Jesus said. Jesus said, this generation won't pass away. So it's impossible that it did. And when it did, it was a worldwide judgment. Judgment has come upon the world. Yeah, it was bad, worse for the people who chose Barabbas. But it was a judgment on the world. So if Josephus is writing a book about how the world carried on and Rome went on and eventually Constantine, and then they have this whole add 1,000 years. If the root is bad, Josephus, and that's all they have, but now you can read Josephus through the eyes of Enoch. And as a Christian, we can just throw out the Bible because we have Enoch. And it tells us what the Nephilim were. No, it does not. Nobody believed that until Michael Heiser and Rob Skiba flipped the switch. And all of a sudden, in a world of scholarship theology that I have been a part of, my Sunday school teacher at Lakeview Presbyterians was a nuclear physicist. And we were studying red shift and how it came into the 6-day creation. There's a different world out there, and they've polluted it on purpose with normalization of the schools. We'll get to it. We're scratching the surface. These people did it. You cannot say that, well, it wasn't eugenics, because I can open up a new tab, I can switch to the screen and show you, hey, look, a new tab. And if I type in the one drop rule, you're going to think that it's going to talk about South Africa. They learned it from the United States also. One drop rule. Oh, it was the legal principle for racial classification prominent in these United States, where if you had one black, if you looked white, but you had 1/64th black, you couldn't play baseball with white people. You couldn't drink at their fountains. That was the United States. And to hide it, they just say it was prominent is sometime in the 1900s. That's the last century. I was born in 1958. Randy was born, he claims it was like in the 1950s, but we all know, I think he was born in the 1880s because he's a lot older than he looks. And it was like, that's when you get Negroes. That's when you get hypodescent, to where it's like, well, these people are invisible blackness. They're mulattoes, but, you know, really quartered down mulattoes. And who did it? Jefferson and those guys. To justify the fact that, you know, why did they change when they plagiarized the Constitution that said, I think John Locke, we'll get into it, he said, life, liberty, and property, these are inalienable rights. But Thomas Jefferson, according to my professor today, Dr. Richard Lusbrook, he said that no, he changed it to the pursuit of happiness, because Thomas Jefferson, his pursuit of happiness was chasing female slaves and saying, you're mine, come here, baby. But I do love you. I do love you. I love you. I love you like a rock. That's what he would tell them. And then these guys learned eugenics. It's proven. It's paperclip. It's here we go. And right now, a nation full of immigrant white people are losing their mind over the fact that their jobs are questioned because immigrants are coming in. And boy, they didn't like it back when the white immigrants came in here, the Irish and some of those others, did they? But the irony is lost on the millstone mind. You'd see it if you hadn't been normalized with welcome to kindergarten. This is a globe.
Europe in less than 4 years.
And the beginning of the war, and even later.
Less than 4 years? What?
es auch schwer war, Gewinne aus Deutschland wieder zu repatriieren, das heißt in die USA zu überweisen, weil es eine strikte Devisenbewirtschaftung gab. Jedoch gibt es auch kein großes ausländisches Unternehmen, das damals sein Engagement in Deutschland beendet hatte.
Despite the challenges of moving assets and profits out of the Reich, several foreign companies would keep their businesses going in Germany, either out of economic necessity or political sympathy.
Yeah, and what do the racist, the people that are all over, and they've even affected, Static in the Attics, mind that was Hitler really so wrong? Look at the miracle economic recovery he did to he came into power in 1933. Look at the miracle economic recovery that FDR did. Yeah, but he did socialism. Nazis are the National Socialist Party. Is the irony lost at two flat earth nationer?
Raw materials, Nazi Germany agreed to export manufactured products to the Soviet Union, something which appalled Germany's leading industrialists.
These are mafias taking control. I thought this would be better.
From 1942, the war begins to change for Hitler and the Nazis. In Russia, the Red Army counterattacks against the Wehrmacht, and the myth of German military supremacy is shattered in devastating defeats at Stalingrad and Leningrad. In the early years of the war, Hitler could count on the Soviet.
And while this was going on, I don't have time to get in how it leads to why didn't Russia fight Japan? Well, they didn't have they didn't declare war on Japan until it was time to drop the atomic bombs. And then they called up China and said, yeah, we know we had a treaty, but we're not renewing it. So in 1 month, we're not saying we're going to attack you, but we might. They did. And it was the same day they claimed to have dropped the atomic bombs. It's all a lie. There's no Schrodinger's cat that can be dead and alive at the same time, which you have to believe if you want to go into string theory and then develop nuclear weapons. Right. What's this one about?
When Hitler takes power in 1933, he makes a promise to the German people that this will be his first priority.
The Nazis had reaped the rewards of the global economic recovery and relied on common sense protectionist policy.
Now, we showed earlier this week that there are those MIFO dollars that they didn't tell the people and they didn't tell the world until it had to be released after 50 years that they were using fiat money to fund the National Socialism. Everybody had a job. Most people, after a couple of years, got a month vacation. If you were hurt, they took care of everything because they wanted it to be presented as, look how this grew because of eugenics. And that's where the hate is coming in. Nothing is more despicable than people who won't rise up against the immigrants to Static and the Other and other people who have just succumbed to the Nazi propaganda.
Designed to prioritize homegrown German manufacturing while instituting military rearmament on a massive scale.
I don't know of any industrialist or business that didn't support rearmament. And indeed, you could say something that most patriotic Germans would do. You've got what looks
Show
like
me a picture of Bush.
Growth, political stability, and you've got
problems.
Goring.
Its self-sufficiency and protectionist approach has meant replacing high-quality imported raw materials with inferior domestic ones. And to match the exacting demands of the 4-year plan and the rate of rearmament, the German treasury has to borrow heavily, and the country is now deeply in debt.
You know, what you've got to look at is the fact that it's recovering because it's on credit. He's borrowing a lot of money. And the only way he's going to be...
I really feel the Holy Spirit saying we need to... Maybe I can remember that... is it Mazda? I'm going to show you really why the United States attacked why everybody picked on Germany, because Germany held out and didn't share information. Germany would have been somehow, with all of the hidden information that the world has been passing out, Germany's mafia discovered
of
this.
tactical units to make a detailed study. With its heavy press program, the United States Air Force has played an outstanding part in making those strides possible. The story of the program begins with World War II. In February 1944, Germany was receiving its worst air drubbing of the war. Day after day, her aircraft were being shot down in great numbers. Her aircraft industry, we knew, was facing drastic shortages of men and material. And yet, as fast as we shot her planes down, more and more appeared to take their place. Where were they coming from?
That's the real question that had to be answered by the mafias of the world. What is Germany's mafia not sharing with us? How are they making these without rivets and welds, extruding metal? Something's weird. They saw it and they couldn't figure it out, and they couldn't bomb the whole city to smithereens like Tokyo, because they knew they had to take those. Whoever won the war, and Russia took the biggest press back. Maybe, did you know that?
How was she doing? A partial answer to her production success was soon uncovered. The wreckage of a crashed Messerschmitt revealed that in the design and fabrication, unusual techniques had been used. The aircraft contained large components, which could only have been produced by huge forging and extrusion presses. For this forged centerpiece, for example, only 5 parts were used. Had it been built up by the old bits and pieces method, it would have contained 18 parts, consuming hundreds of man and machine hours. For instance, the overlapping for joints and the boring of holes for rivets and bolts was not only a waste of material, but required far more skilled labor. One of the reasons for Germany's advanced techniques was that prior to World War II, she was faced with a shortage of iron and steel, as well as manpower. Therefore, she was forced to come up with improved methods of working light metals, in particular magnesium, and found them in hydraulic forging and extrusion presses. In order to learn more about their presses, a team of American industrial consultants was sent into Germany on the heels of tactical units to make a detailed study of her heavy industry.
That is the whole reason that there was a race to Berlin, and it was quartered off so that they could take the machines piece by piece back to their home country.
Visit confirmed the German superiority in forging and extrusion equipment.
How could they fake launch missiles to the moon if they didn't have this technology? It would have been impossible. And actually, they needed the Nazi scientists, so they got them.
In the United States, it was not until 1946 that we had our first really heavy press, an 18,000-ton forging press.
Wow, how come Soviet Union got a 50,000-ton forging press they took?
Designed and constructed by the Mesta Machine Company. Experience with this press, along with 4 which we acquired from Germany after the war as reparations, convinced American authorities that the bits and pieces method was a thing of the past.
Yeah, right. They received from Germany as reparations. They keep using that. Oh, we're going to go attack Iraq in 92, but then we'll use their oil to pay for the war. That didn't happen. It wasn't going to happen. As you can see, there, 2 different versions. It's basically the same thing,
Kicked off what is known as the Heavy Press Program. This funded an effort to build several very large closed die and extrusion presses in the U.S., but also to make sure we had the biggest presses in the world. But shortly after the program started, the Korean War broke out and American industry was urgently put into action to make war material. Thus, as to not delay the program needlessly.
So besides the Soviet Union, which got off with the biggest ones, the United States had to wait until after the Korean War, and then when they finally got their second or third one, these parts came from Scotland, these came from England.
Parts were ordered from
France,
abroad, and before too long, the U.S. had
Italy.
its first press built under the program,
Wow,
though there were
Japan.
very much larger ones to come. Now, why Germany had this technology is interesting as well, and sort of the fault of the countries which defeated her in World War I. The Treaty of Versailles forced Germany to give up much of its iron-producing regions, but was allowed to keep its large magnesium reserves. If you strike iron like a blacksmith,
So there's your takeaway. Did you hear him say magnesium? How many remember a couple of, now this is there, and RJ, I put a link in there if you want to pop on. We have and now I just lost my train of thought because I was excited. Freebird, Leonard Skinnard, and other plane crashes that were people chartering those old World War II planes and then suddenly catching on fire. That's because magnesium was used in a lot of those German planes, and America wasn't supposed to have that technology yet. But somehow there are some of those C-10s or C-27s that they were making in that period, like are unexplainable, like Leonard Skinner's, that have caught on fire and burned up and crashed. And so they're traceable. Welcome, Ella. Thank you so much. It's good to see you. Praying for you as usual. Everybody should pray. She's going to it. Yeah. She knows all this. She's seen that video probably 10 times. The one drop rule wasn't that bad. So we're almost done with the intro. So medical stuff, there's a lot of people working on. Too bad. This is the company from Lake Zurich, that Medical Murray, Barrington, Illinois, with 2 more facilities in Lake Zurich. Well, Barrington, North Barrington. I had an office in Barrington and Lake Barrington. My boss lived in North Barrington. That's a really rich. So here's that Bible verse before we look up that. Here is a trustworthy saying. 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 11 starts. It continues. If we died with him, we will also with him. If we endure, he will also reign. We will also reign with him. If we deny him, he will also deny us. If we are faithless, he remains faithful. He cannot deny himself. I heard a pop on. It's Ella Rose, all the way from North South Wales. Or are you from Melbourne?
I'm in Queensland, mate.
I'm confusing you with Off-Grid John, I believe.
You're right. John's in New South Wales, but I'm in Queensland. So, yeah. Good morning, everyone. Good day.
Give us an update. Tell us what's up.
Oh, nothing much. I'm not going to stay on long. I've got a bit of infection at the moment. The cat bit me. And then we had, nice warm day. In the middle of winter, we had a temperature jump up to 35 degrees in winter, believe it or not. So we had 2 or 3 days of that, and then it dropped back down. It was like 15, maybe 17 degrees higher than what we should normally be having. So then it's just like triggered asthma, and I didn't treat the asthma, and I was cleaning up, and dust and mold and shit just triggered everything. So I'm not feeling the best. So yeah. But shit happens. I'll survive. But I just wanted to say, Alan, I want to ask you, have a think. You think back to the time in the 1800s. Have a think. Where was everyone educated? What country educated the world? What country was well known for education?
Well, the Prussian system was what was adopted by most people, and it turned into, mandatory schooling. I'm going to be talking some about the normalization of schools, but yeah, it was a set thing
Yeah, and then also German. So if you look at it, most of you know, like during the 1800s, early 1900s, right? Most of them were Prussian, and then it went to Germany, and
Yep.
all of them were pretty much German taught. Everyone, any
Yep.
professor of any studies, like Rhodes Scholars, all that, they were all taught by the Germans, everyone. So I
They
just wanted to
all,
lay that.
yep, Karl Marx and those guys, they all were trying to decide who's right, who's wrong, you know, and it turned into, well, if you're for those guys, you deserve to die. Capitalists want to turn commie. Better,
Correct.
better dead than red, and commies feel the same way. That has to be brainwashed into going like, wait, they're humans. They fall in love, they get married, they grow old, they die. You know, you really
Yeah.
want to kill them because their form of bartering is labeled differently.
Yeah, and it become a tit for tat, and we know who it really was that was doing this, and they used Freemasonry as a tool to, you know, complete their achievements and their goals of basically it was taking over everything, getting all the minerals, getting all the wealth, and, you know, putting the population under control.
I'm coming back more and more leaning, you know, when Jesus said, they said, let his blood be on our hands. We're choosing Barabbas, doggone it.
Mm.
He said, your blood will be on your and your children's hand. Well, that's basically one more generation, which basically, how do how do we even know there is a tribe of Judah today? How can you track it and go, I could trace my lineage back to Aaron, and so we're going to open up a temple and start a third temple? Come on.
Yeah, I think the bloodlines are so corrupted, and so much damage has been done to the DNA. I don't think they could actually, to be honest.
Yeah, I really wanted to get into an email that, but I think it's going to be too hard. I wanted to, you know, I'm on a, you know, not only are there no good guy countries, it's not like some people right now they're buying into, well, that Vladimir Putin, he's not that bad. He probably, you know, he's trying to defend. They're all bad. There are no good races either.
I've
There's no. Go
got
ahead.
video of Putin with the Bush and all them in the late 90s in their Freemason regalia at
Really?
some at some big meeting. Like they were all together. Like, you know, like you do not get into these positions unless you are part of the bloodline, you are part of the group, and that's the way it goes. Do you know what I mean? Like that's the way it's been for hundreds of years.
That is the only way. And
Mm.
and the whole lie of, you know, keep working, you know, same thing with Australia, Canada, the United States. Everybody has a chance, you
Well,
know.
and see, the Aboriginals here have had enough at the moment. Like the Native Title Land Act in Australia, like Queensland, there's another one going through. Like over 50% of land or something has been just taken over by these corporations, and then they give them mining leases, and then they get money, and it's just another form of communism. That's all it is. You know, it's robbing from Peter to pay Paul. That's what they're doing. And now,
Yep.
Australia, you're going to watch in Australia, right? And I haven't noticed many Australians talking about this now. They've been trying to develop the Northern Territory for decades now. The Northern Territory is arid, tropical, like subtropical climate. You have the monsoon wet rains that come in for several months of the year. Then you'll have no rain and it'll be dry. Do you know what I mean? So now they've worked out a way to grow cotton in arid land that doesn't use up much water. Right, so they're basically opening up the whole Catherine Northern Territory River to do cotton farming, seed farming, crop farming. It's just going to ruin the whole ecosystem. They want to build several dams up along the river for hydropower as well as floodplain water harvesting storage. Um, and also at the same time at Queensland, they've had a plan for the last 45 years that my mum has told me about, where they want to build a canal that goes from Cairns all the way through basically central Queensland, down through Winton, Longridge, all through there, to take it down into South Australia and then down the guts to Victoria. And that's a plan that they've had for decades as
Okay,
well.
okay.
And
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to take decades, you know. That's
so, and what I've noticed, right, is these areas of where they want to build these dams and all this stuff, it's falling into hand in hand with these native tidal acts. Do you know what I mean? And no one's noticing. No one's noticing.
Fair.
It's
Yeah.
yep. Now, lastly, I'm just going to say one thing, right? I noticed this a bit, right? People use the word Nazis, right? And it's just another thing where they use reverse psychology, right? The word Nazi was a 17th century Austrian barbarian slang derivative towards an Ashkenazi, meaning a cruel, untrustworthy, simpleton, or an idiot. Now, do you think for a second the German military and the German people ever referred themselves as cruel, evil, or untrustworthy idiots?
I would imagine that's a resounding negative.
So I just wanted to leave it at that. But yeah, I'm gonna keep listening, but I've got to go and cough up some phlegm and
All right.
just
Well,
keep me in
thank
your
you
prayers.
so much, everybody. And if you didn't know,
Yeah.
the Earth history was confusing, you should go check out her channel. Thank you
And
so much.
sorry I didn't stay long, but next week when I'm feeling better, I'll pop in and stay for a while. I've got so much stuff I want to share with you guys, but I
Much
want you to leave
love.
you
And
think
we'll
about
talk to
that.
you soon.
That
Praying for your dad and family. Tell you those
God
boys to come
bless.
on. Be good. Love you
Thank
now. All right. So that was you try to be like, good timing on the saying goodbyes, but it's always hard to say goodbye at the door, isn't it? You pour your heart out right when they're leaving. I heard a doctorate lecture on that one time at the door. So I was going to remind Ella that, and I think I did, that not only there's no good nation, and there's not one good gender. It's not like they try to tell us right now women are good, men are bad. Oh, if we could just be more like women, and well, sometime I wrote this down, and when I heard him say, the teacher, we're going to talk about one of the most influential unknown women in the world. I wrote down her name, and he gave her date of birth, 722 to 1793. Could be 793. And she invented indigo. What does that mean? Well, that means she was given the trade secrets that they stole from Japan so that they could not go, they wouldn't have to buy it from Japan and use indigo, a very special blue ink. And what does she have in common with so many others? Because not only are there there's Freemason women who are totally into the Rebecca movement and we're in charge, we're running things, and their heart's not desperately wicked and evil. I'm sorry, I'm not picking on women. I will be getting into, Lord willing, I don't want it to go too long tonight. Might be a topic for 2 nights. Mercantilism and how women were involved in that, and get into the culture of the mind during the time of John Locke and Descartes and the Renaissance, the tabula rasa that John Locke brought up and again, and that how through empirical evidence we need spirituality. We can't be convinced of the Bible. John Locke and those people said that some people are born to it. Natural law proves that, and they should run the world, and they're the government rulers because they're born to it. That was the Great Awakening, the Renaissance, and it was basically promoting deism. And all of the founders, it seems, 98% have been locked in as they were not evangelical Christians. And John Hancock wasn't I wrote a big name just to, so he wouldn't have to put on his spectacles. He wrote a big name because he'd been wanted for 20 years for smuggling and not paying his, not playing by the rules. And then when they rebelled and did this and that and signed it, he signed his name big to say, ha ha, you're fighting France, you're doing this and that. Things aren't going good for you, and you're not going to catch me. I'm one of the founders of the new nation. Deism. We'll be able to, Lord willing, tie that up. They started with the value added tax from lumber in 1650 to 1700. So John Hancock was wanted for 50 years. That's when they did the culture of the mind, mercantilism, the imperial system set up in the United States with those people at the start of the at the end of the golden age, the start of the little season, whatever's the popular golden age past. They called it mercantilism. That was the imperial system, the system of the empire economics. That meant that they would colonize the countries, take their raw goods and raw materials, bring them back to England, process them, and sell them so that they would get their, they'd get a part of the cut. And then people like John Hancock and those other people started, hey, I'll take your stuff on the cheap. What do you think? And they made a fortune doing it. That's the big hit. That's what brought the deference, the habit of deference through the Enlightenment. My mind was already racing on how to tie it into, we're going to be looking at Elia Lucas Pickney and young women who marry much older men. They die, and now they've got all this money to do whatever they want with. It's not only her, that's a big deal. And so is there a power that rocks the cradle? Could they have that same hand that rocked the cradle hidden inside their skirts and their dresses? I think so. Unless I'm wrong in that the women gender, their heart's only kind of desperately wicked. Let's look at her. We're looking at her together. I just think it's going to tie in, because as we could say, oh, it's the same story. One person developed indigo. Indigo has been around for a long time, transformed agriculture before the United States was a state because she had to breed 2 presidents. She developed indigo? I'm going to have to look up indigo. 750 species. It's a tree or a shrub, possibly a shrub. Has some type of a bean pod on it. How do they make indigo dye? They crush up the seeds, I guess. But Egyptian indigo dye fabrics go back more than 500 years. I'm sorry, Eliza. You didn't develop indigo. Oh, you developed indigo into a cash crop. Okay. So somebody showed you the super secret method that when anybody wanted indigo for hundreds of years, they had to go to Japan. But now they could go to South Carolina. Because way to go, girl. You go, girl. Who said you can't hold women down? Now, what I wanted to, that the long monologue was supposed to bring up to the fact that the Enlightenment, the Renaissance, that is what my teacher and them talk about was a fight for women's rights. They weren't treated equal. They couldn't own land. They couldn't do this. They couldn't do that. And you know what I always tell my teachers? 99.3% of the men couldn't vote. 99.3% of the men couldn't own property because there was that bubble at the top. The ones who were born to it, who had the right to rule over us, and that's what they did. And now it's all like they held women down like the blacks and the Mayans who they killed left and right. With the history of the 70s and the chivalry and the acts of deferring to women and the overall, I'm going to get PG-13 on you here, that as soon as electricity was invented, it was turned into a machine to stop the hysterical swooning of women, which, for lack of maybe in a colloquial term without having to use the bad words, is that the women wouldn't rub one out themselves. They'd go to the doctor and have it done electronically. That was the world of women that I read about in the 1980s. Yeah, they couldn't, nobody could vote. Nobody could own property unless you were propped up. But let's read the story about Elisha Lucas. Have you ever heard of Lucas Oil? I wonder if there's any relation there. Anyway, it became super important crash. Sorry, Japan. We need this money. What's going on here in this period? They're forcing China to sell opium. They're forcing China to sell opium. They do 2 wars forcing China to sell opium because they needed cash crops. Because the United States was formed, as Calvin Coolidge said, the business of America is business. The United States, as I learned today, was the first country that was formed, and its colony was designed to make money. Its system was going to be capitalistic and make money. That's why the founders, when I got my new assignment, and thankfully I got this book on for $8 on Amazon because sometimes you got to buy a book to read a chapter, and this one was only $8. That's one of the hidden taxes of university. Pulitzer Prize winner, 2-time Pulitzer Prize winner Gordon Wood. And so I got the book and I looked at his index. Does he have any topics on the Yazoo land scandal or the Pine Barrens swindle, where the founders of the United States, Patrick Henry, give me liberty or give me death? It's proven they belonged to a secret society called the Combined Society that you can't find any information on it. I couldn't, but this was nothing but a setup from the beginning to be a land swindle. They stole it from 510 tribes that they wrote treaties knowing they were going to break every single one. There's no good countries. There's no good genders. There are only people who at one time in their life, and they didn't probably even feel it, all of a sudden their heart was changed. And like a baby, they had been born again. And gradually the things that they used to hate, now they love. They used to hate Jesus, but they love the name of Jesus. And they want to do good. And they start reading the Bible. And you were dead and then you were made alive. Certain people see that. They're 1 called, 2 chosen, elect, predestined, adopted. That's a big 5 right there. But it means nothing unless that conviction has at one point, most of the times, physically driven them to their knees praying, Jesus Christ, I believe you died for my sins. Thank you. Cover me with your blood and wash me from my sins. Put them as far as from the east as from the west. Then then you have a chance of being elected, predestined, called, chosen, adopted, because there's no other way. More about Elisha Lucas here and how with their plan, they have, I keep going to where I searched it. I should close that out. So manages 3 plantations. Oh, women couldn't do anything, huh? All right. Really? They couldn't do anything back then. She's manager of 3 plant, most influential. She could do indigo and nobody else could. So you think there was any slaves on her sugar cane plantation? Or was she just a sweetheart and said, no, we could never enslave people? Oh, never. I don't buy it. To me, it's just another one of the, stories that somehow they all tied it together to, come up with this fake history. Let's just drop in on this one here. Eliza used her 1744 crop to make seed and shared it with other planters, leading to an expansion of the indigo production. She proved that colonial planters could make a profit in an extremely competitive market. Due to her success, the volume of indigo dye exported increased dramatically from 5,000 pounds in 1745-46 to 100. Boy, indigo must be a quick growing plant because that's 2.5 years at the outside. Exponential growth. Indigo became second only to rice as South Carolina colonies commodity cash crop, because that's what we're into, man. Cash crops, cotton, boll weevil. The Wapu plantation, probably named over the people who had been living there. So anyway, it's all there. So let's see. We had Republican motherhood. She was in charge of that. Now, I wonder if that is a thing on the Wikipedia, because it said, or my professor said she founded Republican motherhood. Boom did the boom. Well, there's wet nurse. Oh, I spelled it wrong. Sybil. You don't hear much about her. There's another one. The Mountain Mother. Anatolian mother goddess, may have been a possible forerunner in the earliest Neolithic at Katahala. She is Phrygia's only known goddess and was probably a national deity. Okay. Adopted in all of Asia has departed me. That's when that was fulfilled. When was the great falling away? Well, 2 Timothy, 1st chapter, verse 15. As you may have heard, Tim, all of Asia has departed me. Run for your life. It's on. There she is. With the broken off nose and a quite inverted V. We got any chains sticking out? I've always noticed that their toes are hanging off, right on the edge of a platform. Sybil. Multiple personalities are sometimes associated with the Anglicanized version of that. So I guess they didn't know nothing about the stars or anything. Look at that, seeing through it. Of course it's translucent. It's a half a moon. Or there's something weird going on every morning. Super weird. So we didn't get much on the Republican motherhood. Indentured servants, white people could do it for 7 years. What's going on what if you get a bad boss? Let's see. Triangle of trade. He said Philadelphia from 1770 to 1790. Compare the differences in the United States in 1770. So let's do that. We're wrapping it up shortly here. Didn't I hit enter? I was sitting there waiting for it to change. So that's the timeline of the revolution, colonial history. Let's see here. So, hi, we want to be friends. Just kidding. Not much. In the 1500s, it was still incorporation of the 13 colonies. 15 colonies. The United States in Revolutionary War, England. Now, the reason I said the 15 colonies, and there, if you wanted to count, Bahama or Haiti, those are colonies too. Let's look up the 14th colony. All right. East Florida was a colony of Great Britain from 1763 to 1783. So it would have been a Great Britain colony in 17. Am I doing my math right? I think I am. And West Florida, when were you a colony? It was a colony. It was technically a colony. And Great Britain established West and East Florida as two separate colonies from France and Spain, which is why in 1776, and it'll be up to you to go, what is their obsession with the focus on their original? Because the one colony that was founded by France, West Florida, or just to be sure, either one of them, they stayed with France, and the other one stayed with Spain, and the other 13 said, "Well, isn't that original? We'll carry on without you." So there you go. Much changed, much got advanced. 1787. There were two different. There was a government that failed from 1776 to 1786. And so they had to write the new constitution that we go under now. The other Article of Confederation is that they tried to run the country, that they had the 2-year presidents that were black or mulatto, I should say. They wouldn't have made it in the 1900s when they had the one drop rule. Don't tell me the United States has a consistent history that the normalized schools teach. They wait for your college freshmen to come in, and I'm sitting in with some of them now, and they hear that they were deist, and they prove it. And then for those who weren't ready, there was never an answer until 7-8 years ago when the Lord showed me that mud flood was Armageddon, 1,000 years were over. And now, thank the Lord, that eschatology is being taught for the first time in a Reformed Christian school, where Sergio had a video of him the other night, of professors in school going, the prophets are hard when you look at it as the truth that Jesus said he's coming back, but he did. So there we are. I'm going to keep it short tonight and go over that, hopefully touch base and see what we want to do on Friday night, at least one show on Saturday, and definitely Sunday morning. If you didn't know, we do church here on Sunday morning. In the meantime, I want to thank Ella again. We'll be remembering you in prayer. I want everybody to remember everybody. Take time, turn off the computer every now and then, and just pray. Remembering all of that talk about the being called, chosen, and that you have to, at one point in your life, believe in your heart, confess with your mouth, or it's for naught. That's the way it is on this flat earth nation with its golden age path, because the mud flood was Armageddon. That's why me and my friends are never going to tell you anything else. Amen. Hallelujah.